Hi, welcome to Comic Beat Insider, the weekly live stream podcast chat room about movies, comics, and TV. I'm Heidi MacDonald, the editor in chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host producer of Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture.
And joining us this week,
I'm Deb Aoki. I write about manga for Publishers Weekly, and we're working on a new podcast about manga for non-manga readers that we'll be talking about pretty soon.
Excellent.
This is also my cat, Timmy.
I was going to say, what does Timmy have to say about all this?
Timmy's a big Jackie Chan fan. I know that. So
yeah, it's pretty obvious.
I follow Timmy's blog. So yeah.
So of course, for the first time, I'm having, I see why I'm having so many problems here. I'm having audio difficulties. So,
oh, no.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I always forget.
Can you hear us? Is that
I can
good?
hear you. Yes.
Okay.
You know, I've only been doing this for almost a year and I forget how to do everything every week. So anyway, clearing the decks. It is Kung Fu Month here at Comic Beat Insider. Nice. Jimmy and I have been livening up our winter doldrums with talking about some super action flicks, and we're kind of looking at different eras of this. We looked at Kung Fu Hustle for the aughts, this work of Stephen Chow. Then we went all the way back to Five Venoms.
Deadly Venoms,
or the Shaw Brothers classic Kung Fu. And now we come to the 80s, the 90s, the one, the only, Jackie Chan. And his, merry band, and Michelle Yeoh, who was his co-star in Supercop, a bunch
1992.
1992, but the GOAT, as I call her. It's hard to top Michelle Yeoh.
She's great. I kept waiting for every moment for her to be in this movie.
Same.
Oh, right?
Oh my God.
Right?
Just feels it.
And I mean, I don't, I wanted to do Supercop because I wanted to talk about Michelle Yeoh. I mean, obviously we're talking about the guys, and Jimmy said we should watch Police Story, which I hadn't seen in a long time.
No, you said I should watch Police Story.
Yes, I did. I said you need to watch Police Story.
Yeah.
So, but I watched it too, and I don't think Deb is kind of our guest star. So if you didn't have time to watch it, that's okay. But I mean, my heart is for Michelle, but just a tiny bit below is Jackie Chan, because he is holy fucking shit.
I mean, the Police Story is a franchise of films. So there was Police Story 1 and 2, and then Supercop is the third in the series. And there's about 4 or 5 others. Wow. First Strike was a big American one, which I also just watched, where he sort of deals with Ukrainian, mobsters. And then the newer ones have a more serious tone to them. But these are very funny. And of course, the insane fight choreography, Jackie Chan and his stunt team, the Jackie Chan stunt team, as it's appropriately called, is incredible. And the amount of injuries and mishaps he had that he went through. He broke so many bones in all these films because they do all, even Michelle Yeoh, they do all their own stunts. That would never happen. That's why he couldn't get a lot of American work for a while, because they didn't want him doing his own stunts. He's like, well, I do my own stunts. Sorry, that's what I do.
Well,
I can't imagine what kind of insurance policy he must have.
Serious, right?
Oh, it's crazy. But the Police Story, the first one was the Time Out magazine did a poll of directors and stunt people, and for the greatest action movie of all time.
Oh yeah.
Police Story number 1 came in at number 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yes, it did.
It's
and
incredible.
It's on, it's on HBO Max. And, Deb, if you have some time, I just, we don't mean to catch a flat-footed with not having seen it, but, oh my God, it's crazy. But what we do is we go around here and we talk about the first time we encountered this. So I'll start out because I think it's really interesting. Now, next week we're doing Enter the Dragon. So we're going to be talking about.
That's the shit.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And,
my pick. I can't wait.
Yeah. And in talking about, wow, Timmy's
like, I'm out.
He's like, Bruce Lee, no way.
No way. I'm out.
But we've been talking about how Bruce Lee's incredible charisma and star power created the Kung Fu, craze of the 70s. Okay. And, it was a craze. It didn't last that long. And then again, in the late 80s, early 90s, like Jackie Chan and the Hong Kong filmmakers became another kind of a craze. So when I first moved to New York in the mid 90s, the Hong Kong movies were such a hipster thing to do. And, with the looming threat of Hong Kong going back to mainland China. So there was, everybody in the Hong Kong movie industry was desperate to break out of that industry and to get a footing in the American market, right? Because they didn't know what was going to happen. So we saw a lot. Everybody was crossing over the United States, John Woo, Chow Yun-fat, and Jackie Chan, of course. But Police Story represents him at his finest. He says it's his best role. So I would go. They had this kung fu, martial arts movie, Hong Kong movie series at the theater on 12th Street, and that lasted for like 2 months.
Wow.
And I would just go all the time. And
really?
Yeah. So I saw so many movies there, and I had some friends who were dragging me like, "You got to see Jackie Chan, Heidi." And so I saw all three the then extant Police Story movies, and Drunken Master, and a lot of Jet Li movies.
Drunken Master,
Heroic Trio, Wing Chun with Michelle Yeoh, Anita Mui, and Maggie Cheung, and I just was freaking blown away. And Jackie Chan, I mean, he's one of the greatest physical movie stars of all time. Top 10.
Oh, absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely.
Top 10.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't remember when because I was a huge Jackie Chan fan as a kid. I know I saw Drunken Master very young on those Saturday morning black belt kung fu theaters. They did on like one of the local stations. Every Saturday we'd gather to watch all these, friends and I would watch all these kung fu films. And I'm assuming I must have seen it back then, but I didn't really remember. So it's been a long, long time since I saw any of these. If I even did see them all, I can't remember.
To be fair, the plots aren't too memorable.
Well, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, it is all about the fighting. Yeah. But what's interesting is about the films is, as we said, it is a franchise, and I know Jackie had tried to break into the American market with The Protector in 1985, didn't do very well, and supposedly Supercop was his answer to that. Like, well, I'm going back to Hong Kong, and I'm going to make a kick-ass film, and they can come to me, like that. And so supposedly that's the reason that Supercop got made in the first place.
Or Police Story.
Sorry, yes, you're right. Police Story got made because he failed initially in the American market. Just wasn't marketed very well. And also with this, not just him, Michelle Yeoh had retired from acting 5 years before. This is she got married. This is her first role in 5 years. And look at what the fuck. She comes to, holy God damn. It's like
that woman does not grow old because she looks barely different than she is now.
Yeah, exactly.
And not in that weird fakey Hollywood west of La Cienega kind of way. That's super tight and gross and pointy nose. She looks really natural.
She looks amazing.
Yeah,
I'm Star Trek now, and
I mean, she is just incredible. But I mean, we'll get to talking a little bit more about her kind of career ups and downs. And but Deb, what's your history with Jackie Chan, kung fu movies, and all that?
It's kind of weird because like I grew up in Hawaii, and Hawaii has both has like kind of like a majority minority kind of thing. So we had Japanese movie theaters, like Japanese language movie theaters, where you could watch samurai movies, and we also had Chinese movie theaters where you could watch Hong Kong films of all kinds. And I think until very recently, there were like 2 or 3 of each. So you could walk by, you could go through Chinatown, you would see the Golden Harvest Theater, and you would see these movie posters. And it was always something different. But when we came to the video era, when like you didn't have to wait for it to show up on TV or watch the Chinese TV station, that you could just get videos. That's when it completely blew up, because then everyone's all talking about, oh, did you see this? And they're like, oh, and people trade VHSs, and eventually But it was, I think what I find really fun about the how Hong Kong movies blew up in a way that the Japanese movies didn't quite, was how kind of over the top they were.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, and just so self-aware of that, because like one thing comparison I make is between LA and San Francisco. LA is ridiculous, but it knows it is, and it laughs at itself. Whereas San Francisco is ridiculous and is a little pretentious about it.
No comment.
That's a great comparison.
Samurai movies are kind of like San Francisco, and Hong Kong movies are kind of like LA. Just kind of like, you know what? This is all bullshit. This is all crazy. But you know what? We're gonna run with it. We're not gonna bother trying to make this realistic or anything like that. We're just gonna go for the most explosive, mix of. It's just like firecrackers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just
It really
fun,
is
because and there's particularly as I'm watching the Jackie Chan movies because the Bruce Lee movies were very kind of serious and action packed, and Bruce Lee was a badass. And every now and then he would kind of wink at the camera, kind of like, yeah. Jackie Chan picked the wink at the camera thing up to 5 more notches.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's very interesting. You say
he's
that.
Very charming, and kind of like, I'm just like you. I'm just an ordinary guy who can just beat the shit out of other people.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because when Chan came out of school and got in the movies, of course, Bruce Lee was huge. And everyone wanted a Bruce Lee clone. So that's where that whole sort of Bruce exploitation thing started happening. Where you had Bruce Li, Bruce Le, Bruce, all these other ones. But Jackie was like wanted to set himself different from that, so he purposely made his characters pretty opposite, and even his fighting style opposite from. Because, like you said, Bruce is a little more serious, a little more stern, morally upright. And Chan always played these sort of kind of foolish, regular Joes, well-meaning. Often at the mercy of like friends or girlfriends and things like that, but would always triumph at the end despite the odds. And his fight style was different because Lee was always very, arms held wide, while Chan sort of holds his body a little tighter in. Lee was more loose and flowing. Chan was tight and choppy. So it was a smart move on his part. Heavily like I'm going to set myself.
They're very distinct, right?
Yeah, they really are.
A lot of people talk about like, like I can't tell Asian people apart. They all look the same. I'm like, these kung fu guys, they all look the same. But like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, like different personalities. So you can definitely tell them apart.
They're completely different. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jet Li as well.
Yeah.
Also completely different. I always say Jackie Chan is Fred Astaire, Jet Li is Gene Kelly.
That's great. Yeah,
that's a nice one.
Yeah, because Jackie Chan really is just, he flows. I mean, in Police Story, there's a scene where he's hanging off a bus with an umbrella, no big whoop, and a moving bus and an umbrella, and he's just like, he's Buster Keaton. I mean, he loved Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd. He loved the great silent, comedians, Chaplin, and it just is, he just moves as only he can.
Well, he does.
Comedy is great, because
he's really funny. Yeah.
And like that, comparing like him to Bruce Lee, like when Jackie Chan fights, there are moments when he gets socked, like when he
that's what's great,
right? And so he's like, whoa, what just happened, Whereas Bruce Lee, he's always on top.
Yeah. Bruce gets hit a few times.
Yeah,
you get that look where he like tastes the blood. He's like, goes at it, but Jackie gets beat down. That's what makes it more realistic, where they're both, it's like he eventually triumphs, but he gets knocked the crap out of him several times. And that's what I love about it, is that he makes it almost more, I mean, I love Bruce, of course, but it's like, my God, Jackie makes it a little more realistic in a sense, where he's gonna like, I'm surrounded by 5 guys, I'm not gonna just automatically take them all out. They're gonna get a lot of good hits in, and I'm gonna feel it. And he does use, I love they set up in the movie that his character has studied so many different styles, because he, in that first little test fight with the army guy, Captain, he even does a little Bruce Lee, where he loosens up a little.
He does.
Bruce Lee, I was like, he does like different styles and gives a little homage, I think, to Bruce there, which I thought was really nice. But amazing.
Yeah. And talking about that, I mean, the women in these movies also get beat up, and they get beat up by men. They get beat up, by other women. But there's no. And I find that super refreshing, that there's there's intergender matches, and it's not like explained or whatever. It's just they and if you're a woman, you're kick ass. You might get your ass kicked too. And it's just part of being a hero or heroine. It's like you get every once in a while. I can't do it like Jimmy does. He did so well.
But they come out of every fight completely unbruised. And
well. And
like, if you had that kind of street fight, you would get a black eye. You'd be bleeding a couple.
Well, he definitely have broken bones, because that's something I love that he does. When he did Cannonball Run, remember the first Cannonball Run, he had a very small role. and he really liked the idea of the credits stuff where they would show
Right,
the
he got
the
that.
outtakes. So that's where he got it from, and but he decided to take it where, well, my outtakes are going to show you all the mishaps we had, and like he got seriously injured in these films, and like broke some bones, and like several of the fighters did too. You see them being carried away in stretchers. And what I love is like I mean, he had a team of people, and they're so professional and so well trained. It's something I, as a former, I don't know if Debbie, I'm a former actor and a former fighter. I used to do stage combat, stuff like that. You need to know when to stop. And it's like these guys, you watch these outtakes, and he gets something mishap, they stop and immediately run to help him. I'm like, that's amazing.
They do, but it's horrifying. And I mean, I watched a little montage of his credits, right? And I actually stopped. And the montage at the end of Supercop is one of the worst because he's on this pole that's that's revolving, and there's a train moving, and then there's a helicopter coming, and he's supposed to like, jump up and avoid just miss it. And guess what? He doesn't. And like he's in this jumpsuit, hanging from the wire, and his body goes slack.
Limp. They have to cut him down.
He's just limp. And the stunt team rushes in, and they're cutting him down. And it's just the most horrible thing. And behind me, you could see probably his greatest stunt, maybe the greatest stunt of all times, where in Police Story, where he slides down 100-foot pole covered with lights. Fight. And the mall fight, and like he lands, and
he seriously, like he
burned, had second-degree burns on his hand. And you think they would put a nice big comfy mattress, but like you watch these takes, and they're just like, land on the concrete. And apparently he lands 100 feet, broke his pelvis, almost became paralyzed. I mean, every time he does one of these stunts, he almost becomes paralyzed. And it's kind of sickening. It's actually sickening when you watch these, and
it's the opposite of what I learned at stage combat, where it's safety, distant control. It's like you pretend to be hurt. You don't actually contact somebody. You don't actually fall face first on the ground. You stop your fall with your hands or something like that. This is like full on, like, no, go ahead, and we want to make it look as realistic as possible, which is great, but also obviously very dangerous.
It's just, last week we had a stuntman on, Randall Trang, who does this, and he had such a great conversation though, in explaining like people. I mean, they're adrenaline. Stuntmen are adrenaline junkies. That's the phrase he used. And I mean, watching these just. Okay, so let's back up and let's talk a little bit about Police Story, just the plot, and Debbie.
Let's do 1 and 2 real quick.
So let's just do 1 and 2 real quick. But again,
so they were 85 and 88.
Yeah, and
was 92.
Co-directed, co-written by Jackie Chan, and he's quite a talented director too.
And Stanley Tong was a director.
Stanley Tong, right? But I mean, there's no shame in Jackie Chan's co-direction, and so we meet him as Chan Kukui, which in the English versions is Kevin, which kind of sets up the fact he's a cop. He's a Hong Kong cop. He's just a regular. Well, he's not a regular cop. I mean, they know he's pretty cool, and there's some drug dealers, and he's got to go after them. So it opens up with a set piece in the shanty town of some part of Hong Kong. Insane stunts. There's a car, the bus chase, but there's also this car that plows through the shanty town, which has been ripped off or homaged in several. I think Michael Bay.
So many films.
Yeah, Michael Bay used it, but this was the first time that a car had plowed through shanty town. Props to Jackie Chan. And then this bus chase where he's wearing this jumpsuit. I mean, there's so many of the great kung fu scenes or martial arts scenes that the hero's wearing some very nondescript. Bruce Lee obviously had his yellow jumpsuit, but I love Jackie Chan. He is the ordinary guy. He's just wearing like this kind of utilitarian jumpsuit,
like a workman's jumpsuit.
And anyway, he's on the bus. The bad guys in the bus, and there's this shot. I mean, that's death defying. But then the bus stops, and you see the henchmen come tumbling out of the bus. It's a double-decker bus. They just come tumbling out of the bus, 2 stories onto the pavement. That's real. I mean, they were injured. They did not get up because the real stunt people just are like, we got to get this shot, so we'll just jump right out of this second-story window onto the pavement.
Through glass.
Window. Why not?
Fake glass, obviously, but it's like, and then like you said earlier, Jackie's running down this hill to catch this bus, and he hooks onto it with a umbrella in the second story, and the bus is going full speed, and he's hanging onto it, full on hanging onto it with a freaking umbrella. You're like, holy shit! And he fell a couple times, of course, so they had to redo shoots, and it's like, holy crap! It's insane. It's insane.
Can
And I
you
mean,
imagine
he
then
must.
the planning meetings for these movies where they're
Well, they
just like,
didn't.
and then we can do this, and then
Well,
we can
they
do this, and then we can do this.
apparently they didn't really have a lot of planning meetings.
Is that right?
That's the thing. It's like apparently they were just. I mean, they were like, yeah, I'll hang off the bus with an umbrella. Okay, great. And then they're like, oh, well, and then
I don't know. I mean,
don't know.
I haven't heard that, but it's
No,
like I feel like this is choreography. It's like it's
yeah,
got to
they
be
did
like
choreography.
They did do that, but a lot of it is very, very, like I say, they had to, like in this scene, like they go to the mall, destroy the mall. He had one take to do this because, and why did he have only one take? Because the next day the mall had to be open. So they had only that afternoon to do it.
You need to see this fight. This is like a 10-minute long fight,
yeah,
but it's like
I
he fights all these guys, and then he does the whole like down the 100-foot pole and burn because it has lights all around it. So he literally burns second-degree burns on his hands by sliding down, breaks his pelvis, as she said, and it's like incredible fight. Just the way he uses props is amazing. Like he'll take a tray or a ladder, as we see, and these he'll take anything and like find ways to use it, in and out, jumping in and out of this or this under this hoop or whatever. And it's like, which is again goes back to like what we saw last week, the Shaw Brothers films with the Venoms guys. They all went to the Peking Opera School, which was acrobatics, circus performing, stunts, fighting, all this. So they were well trained since they were very tiny, and so it's like, and he shows it all off in these movies. It's incredible.
It's kind of this anything goes school of martial arts, right?
Yeah.
It's really like in Japanese films, it's like the sword, and then the technique and this, this kind of discipline to this. And like in this Hong Kong kind of style, it's kind of like, there's a chair, okay, it's a weapon.
Yeah. The Hong Kong kung fu fighting is this way. Japanese, I did sword work. Japanese is head on like this, the sword fighting. So it's a very different style too.
Yeah, it's completely like
tokusatsu,
like Japanese tokusatsu, which is like your live action with like Ultraman or Kamen Rider, and then like your kung fu fighting, whatever. It just doesn't have that same percussiveness, that same kind of sense of like like flesh hitting bone, and I only hear that patak.
Well, in Police Story, after Kevin Kakui Jackie has taken down this drug lord, they capture his girlfriend, who's going to be the witness. Jackie's
poor May.
Well, but we also
he's in all three movies.
We meet the great Maggie Chung, who is also amazing. She was also part of the heroic trio. She's had her own amazing martial arts moments, and a great actress, and also Bridget Lin, who is another superstar of Chinese cinema, who is the girlfriend that Jackie must protect. But May is either the worst or the best girlfriend.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
I've got reasons too, but go ahead.
She just. He's a terrible boyfriend too. Don't get me wrong, but she knows he's a cop. I mean, it's kind of like talking about the unreality of it. Like she veers between, oh, why are you with this woman? And we're done, we're finished.
Like
and then
knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, knee-jerk reaction. But then when they're in the mall scene and it's like a fight, she's like, okay, I'm gonna do what I have. She's not like kung fu fighting in Police Story, but she's like, yeah, I'll hold the door, I'll grab the, I'll go down the
elevator.
How
irresponsible was it of Jackie Kennedy be like, May, go get the bag. Like, don't put her in the fight. What's wrong with you? Girlfriend.
So she's, and we'll talk more about her role in Supercop because she's in all three movies. But
she does play the much maligned, but you're right. She does, like in the very beginning when he brings the witness home. It's a woman. It's and
it's Bridget Lin. I mean,
Bridget Lin is this gorgeous woman,
shorty pajamas. I mean,
and meanwhile Maggie's there with her friends doing a surprise birthday party for him, and all she sees is this beautiful woman, in her underwear because Jackie had to take her quickly from home to get away from the bad guys, and so she's in her like a lingerie with like a coat. So that's what, of course, she reacts, but she's like, we're done. So she's always like crying him, where's through? I hate you, Kevin Chan. I hate you. And like runs off. But then she always comes back.
Yeah,
She
she
always
always
comes
comes back and
and she
jumps
finally
right into the
understands. But it's like
fray.
she could be a little more understanding, like you said, that he's a cop, and
Mhm.
maybe there's an explanation. But he also was not that great when he was like,
No.
like with her, and like he lied to her a lot, But I think he lied to her to save her from worrying about his dangerous mission.
Well,
But
it's
still,
part of the broad
yeah,
comedy
which is
underpinnings
funny.
of this
She's very
series.
funny in it. Yeah.
And there's another great scene in Police Story where he gets demoted to a local, podunk police station.
Mhm.
He has to answer the phones.
Oh, the phone thing.
Oh my God.
Incredible.
And this is like right out of a Marx Brothers comedy
It's like
with
7 phone cords on
incredible
him, and
Jackie Chan physicality where
again,
he's
choreography, amazing.
yeah, he's like running over here to grab one phone, and he's got a swivel chair, and then one, and so we wouldn't do this today. It's like, oh, my husband is beating me. It's like, oh, hold one moment. Like, oh, I was just raped, and like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, it's not not very
Yeah, it's
PC,
like, no,
but it is beautiful.
it's well. I mean, the choreography is so great.
Oh, and he's just so funny. He's
He's really
so
funny.
talented.
Yeah, and
He's so
then
cute and
Different
talented and
for an action
amazing.
movie.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, Police Story 2, real quick, is like he's back, and like there's a big drug lord thing again happening, and there's this fighter who's like a deaf mute, but he's an incredible kung fu fighter. So there's a few fights in the very last scenes in this giant factory, big fight with this guy and they throw like firecracker stuff at each other, and they literally light each other on fire. And you see the outtakes, like, yeah, they had to be like big, like had the fire taken out with the extinguishers, because they literally like, okay, well, I'm too much on fire, like they're literally throwing the fire at each other as they like fight. And it's incredible, like a ladder scene, which we see again in First Strike, where he uses the ladder, he jumps through the ladder and uses it as like a weapon, and is in and out. And you see the outtake where he misses sometimes, and the ladder
Mhm.
goes on his crotch. He's like, oh, and like, but it's incredible. And then there's a giant explosion. The whole warehouse breaks. May gets taken hostage again. It's like, oh, poor May. But yeah, it's just the choreography is my God, just
Do you
it's
feel
mesmerizing.
like each movie kind of like takes what the previous one does and like ramps it up and ramps it up?
Yeah.
Or is it
Yeah.
like
Absolutely,
regular flow?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we get to the third one, Supercop, and absolutely does it ramp up.
Yes, and
And
it has a different director. I mean, Jackie didn't direct
Oh.
this. It's Stanley Tong,
mhm,
but it was only his third or fourth film. It was fairly
mhm,
early, and he directed quite a few really good Hong Kong movies. He tried to
mhm,
come to, this is like the thing. Everybody was trying to cross over. He's obviously a very good action director. So he came to the
mhm,
United States, and they were like, okay, you can direct Mr. Magoo. That's a
Is that
really
what it
great.
was?
Yeah, and Stanley Tong. And then guess
yeah.
what? Horrible flop. That was it. It was over. But I mean, talk about setting someone up to fail. Like you couldn't make a Mr. Magoo movie, you're done. But
Right.
you couldn't make Mr. Magoo, but you directed some of the greatest stunts ever put on film. So obviously you have no talent. So go home. Um,
Mhm,
but yeah, so Super Cop is I mean, Kevin Jackie is pretty well established as the super cop of his Hong Kong
mhm.
precinct. They send him to mainland China on a mission.
Yeah.
And no, so so there's a few different versions of this. So I saw the one on Amazon Prime, which is the dubbed version. I'm sure
Mhm.
you all did you
Well, no,
also
but they give you the option of oh no, I'm sorry, you're right. No, Police Story, they give you the option
yeah.
HBO. I watched that in the original Cantonese. Yeah, on Amazon, you get no choice. It's dubbed.
Now that is because they did re-release it after
Hmm.
Jackie Chan
Yeah,
became super, big. And
yeah,
Michelle Yeoh, I mean, she was a Bond girl, so her career in the United States,
yeah. They dubbed their own
yeah.
voices in English,
Yes,
right?
it's
It sounded
both.
like them. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's both of
Yeah,
them.
it's true.
And so, which is a little better. And also I read that on the previous films, they didn't actually use ADR on the set. So like they
Mhm,
actually they did dub everything.
mhm.
They didn't have great recording on
Yeah.
scene, so everybody would already dub their lines. And so in this one they could do it on the set, but then they could ADR it
Hmm.
easier later. I will say, when I saw these back in the 90s, one of the things about Hong Kong cinema was that if they spoke in Cantonese, they were made in Cantonese, which is mainly the language of Hong Kong as I understand it. But all the films in Hong Kong were subtitled in Mandarin and English. So
Hmm.
the other two languages of Hong Kong. So, they were already prepped for an English-speaking audience, which made it pretty easy at that point. But anyway, this version was completely dubbed, and they added that 90s soundtrack.
This soundtrack is insane.
So the hip hop wasn't there before?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, it's got Tupac. It's got
Tom Jones.
The dog pound. It's got Tom Jones doing a remake of Kung
I
Fu
didn't
Friday.
think of that
It's got Devo. Devo.
Yeah,
insane.
It's a classic late 90s.
Warren G, no doubt.
Like
it's
soundtrack
of soundtrack.
Interscope Records with all their top acts on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we see Jackie go to mainland China, and he is introduced to Inspector Jessica Chan of the Interpol. And we finally meet Michelle Yeoh, and she's tough as nails, man. She is humorless. And, you have to imagine at the time, there was a lot of political subtext to all of this of, going to the mainland. And, you can kind of see because like mainland China is presented very rural. They're talking about the farm and so on. And also, Jackie's the swagger.
And the way they pick Wuhan, and Wuhan's a
yes, I know that. Yeah, where he's from. I'm like,
no, avoid.
Maybe go to Wuhan. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But like Jackie's this freewheeling Hong Kong cop, and she is so straight laced. She is
tough as nails. Yeah.
I'm just standing, tough as nails. But she's so great.
It's great because he's always kind of flirty in these films too, even though he has his girlfriend May, and he tries it with her, and she's like, "I don't need your compliments." I was like, "Yeah, that's right." She don't. I was like, "Yeah, that's right." She's badass. So then we get into the very first fight where we get we see these giant like elite, cops training insanely, or soldiers and things like that, and so they want to see Supercop in action. So he goes up against like the captain guy, and it's a great little fight. It's a really short one, but it's got great comedy in it. But like, man, the two of them are. I'm like,
who's the police instructor? Is he someone famous as well?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm sure he's probably one of those guys that worked all the time, was constantly in shows, but yeah, I'm not positive.
Yeah, there's a lot of I discovered in researching this that there's a lot of information about the first two Police Story movies, because they were actually re-released like just a couple years ago as like in this Criterion Collection edition. So they were actually which I didn't know about. So I would have done that in a heartbeat, but I didn't know. I don't know a lot of things. And there's a little bit less information about Supercop I found online until it gets its own Criterion Collection, I'm sure.
But then if you read the Amazon Prime streaming version, there's a whole part where they give you all this trivia, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Really fun. I didn't do that.
Yeah, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Some of the stuff there, you're like, but again, who knows the validity of a lot of these trivia? It's like, all right, maybe it's true or not, but yeah.
Yeah, but then Jackie is sent off on his first mission, which is to break this criminal Panther out of jail.
And who is Panther?
Panther. Oh my God.
Yeoh, our boy Yeoh.
Our old friend landlord. Jen, have you seen Jen, where did that come from? Deb, you've seen Kung Fu Hustle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so he's a landlord.
That's
yeah.
Right.
And he's very famous. He was Bruce Lee's stunt double for years and went on to make almost 100 films, like dozens of films. And he was a big Kung Fu guy for years. And Kung Fu Hustle was actually his first film he had made in years. But yeah, it was great. And he's always got to play the bad guy because he had that mustache in a movie. So here he is again as Panther the bad guy. And I was like, yeah, wow, my boy.
I know. And it's funny because when I saw him with the facial hair, I was like, oh, a guy with facial hair. It's like landlord. And then because I'd forgotten. I forget everything. Yeah. I was like, wait, it is landlord. And it's so great to see him because he's great. He
doesn't get much fighting though. He gets a couple little fights here and there, which I get. It's not really for his character. Was not really. But I was like, oh man, I'd like to see a little more action from him.
Well, it's interesting though that I mean, he did play villains, and he did a lot of martial arts films, obviously, and I mean, they show a couple times he busts a move, and you're like, oh my God, because he's great. He's so athletic,
so well trained,
and talented, and so well trained. And I guess they just didn't want to have they didn't want to have
It's Jackie's movie. It's Jackie Michelle's movie.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's, I don't know. Like you have another Kung Fu master as the villain and you don't take advantage of that. I think the story in Super Cop is pretty
it's
thin.
it's basically like a string of beads where there's string and then there's fight scene.
Yeah. And Jackie's hanging on that thread with an umbrella.
Yeah. The plot is not there. You know, it's
we're
kind
not
of
here
like
for plot.
It's not like a porn movie. There's really, oh, you got a pizza delivery? All right, fine, let's go.
But I still you love it though. But it's like,
but it's a great it's a great escape scene with him and Yeoh as they you know, I will say, like, Jackie's running up the hill and man, he's not doing too well when he's trying to run up that
hill. I was feeling that run up the hill.
Me too. I was like,
I live in the Bay Area and I felt that.
Yeah, I like trying to climb those, like, oh, forget it. But it's great. So they decided to go back to his hometown of Wuhan. And of course the government or the Interpol set up this whole little like family for him. And they get back. Well, I love this great. It's like, I wish I had that kind of greeting when I got home to my family. My friends. Like, oh, Kevin, my Uncle Kevin, oh, brother Kevin, oh, my son, and of course the great is it Bill Tung that plays Bill Tung that plays Uncle Bill, the guy that he's in all three of the police. He's in four of them. He's in the last one, First Strike as well. He plays like the deputy commissioner, and his, you know,
he's Kevin's like the hard-boiled, but you know, like,
soft-hearted.
Kevin, you mustn't do that again, but it's okay.
And he comes in drag as the mom.
That was crazy.
It's so funny. And I love that, like, at one point, like when they're sitting there, like Yeoh turns his head, he has to go, "It's me," like nobody knew it was him. It's so great.
And Michelle, but you know, but if that scene is, I'll say that scene is hilarious.
Yeah, it's really
taking
funny.
advantage of Jackie Chan's, because he doesn't, you know, he's like, he doesn't know Interpol's got all this set up, so he's like, oh, you know, they're like, oh, where's your family? You got to go, you know, don't you know where you live? And then they're like, oh, Fensha. And then like, and who's this woman? And he's like, oh, is it my wife? And then Michelle Yeoh walks in and she's like, brother,
little pigtails, and I was like,
with her pigtails that are little,
little outfit, yeah, she looked great.
Just in love with her. She's
like, hey, brother, you know, it's like, okay.
And he's like, brother.
I love their relationship because they clearly became good friends off camera as well, but like just their banter, the way they like would just punch each other, fight each other all the time was so great. It was really fun to watch that. And I think they sort of like probably ad-libbed a lot of those little like punches and fights, little smacks to each other, which I thought was really pretty fun.
And but you know, then all right, so she's a sister, and you know, Kevin and Inspector Chan have infiltrated this gang. And then we go out to dinner, their dinner scene, and
did that translate? I'm curious of the Cantonese, because in the voiceover, did he say roast cat?
Yes. Oh my God,
like,
I wonder.
Either he's making fun of the whole, like, you know, running joke people always have about Asians, how we eat cat and dog, or some American producer like, that'll be funny, let's throw that in. And I was like, well, I'm really curious about like the Cantonese on that. Like, what actually was that the actual line, or
he
I was like
something else?
Roast cat and string beans.
Yeah,
is what it was. And I was like, and then like Yen was like, yeah, order me one too. I'm like,
order me one too.
Okay, they're going for the comedy. Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That part makes it a stoner movie, man.
Yeah. Well, we see. So it's a big restaurant, you know, serving all sorts of dishes. And but some of the officers who saw them escaping from the prison are there, which is, how did they get to Wuhan anyway? Whatever. It's like it's the plot. Don't think too much. But we suddenly, there's danger. They have to escape, and suddenly Michelle Yeoh.
Oh my God!
Busts.
That's her first big fight scene.
First fight. Like, we knew she was tough, but we did not know. I mean, she makes this entrance of jumping up in the air and doing a split kick to two guys' heads, and you're just like,
insane. And then she gets cut off where she does the amazing flourish. And it's like, and then doesn't get to use it. I was like, oh, that's so good. And what's great about her is that She was a ballerina. She grew up being a ballerina
Ah,
and then got injured, so that's why she didn't continue and went into acting.
mm,
I don't know that she must have had fight training at some point, but also dancers do so well because also I'm a
Mhm.
former dancer, do so well in because it's choreography. So if she never had fight training, that's incredible. And I'm assuming she must have had some.
She did.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah.
she had I mean, her whole life story is just inspiring. So,
Oh,
she's
she's incredible.
Malaysian, which is a
Yeah.
minority group in
Hmm.
China. So, she was considered kind of an exotic beauty. And
hmm.
she was quite athletic as a girl, as you can tell.
Hmm.
She played squash and trained in classical dance. And then she says her mother entered her in the Miss Malaysia beauty contest.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
she was
wow.
like, "Oh, mom, I don't have time for this." But guess what? She won
Guess
because
I'll win. Whatever.
she won. And
At age
then
20, yeah.
Oh
supposedly
my
this
God.
rich businessman called her up and said, "Hey, you want to be in movies?" And they did get married, but it didn't last too long.
Yeah.
And so
Was that the marriage that ended before? No, that doesn't make sense, right? Because she was in movies and then she retired
she
because.
no, it did. This was she had not acted in a while before
Mm,
Supercop. Like she did a
She
few.
hadn't acted in 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, she hadn't acted in five
oh,
years. So she got married to this rich guy. She was, the treasured trophy wife.
mm,
And like I said, I couldn't find, like, I guess they were just like looking for more female action stars, and like, I mean, how she was like, I'm gonna be the one, I'm not sure. But
yeah.
she came back, she came out of a mini retirement
Hmm.
to just, you know kick ass. And I mean, she's
Yeah.
just she did she studied the kind of things that you would study, like she studied tai chi, I believe.
Mm,
Okay.
And
Yeah, she must have had some
but
fight
she's
training, but
just
yeah.
so disciplined. She said she went to the gym where the stuntmen and the martial artists trained, and she was just there with all the guys for 11 hours a day, just training. And
I believe it.
yeah,
mm.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean,
She's
to
incredible.
be perfectly and like this is gonna show my the fact that I haven't watched a movie, in from the
that's
80s and
okay.
90s
Don't
in
worry.
quite
It's all
some time.
you.
But it's like you're looking at it, and you see like these giant phones that they're
Oh
carrying,
God.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and then there's the part where like kind of like how when you watch when you read like Jane Austen movies and you think, well, this all could be solved if they call text message each other, right?
Right.
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 So there's moments like wait, like he's in the van and they're saying, well, where's your hometown? And you think, well, he could just whip out his phone and text message and like, where's home? So there's some things that are kind of like, okay, I mean that and the acid wash jeans everywhere,
Hmm.
Oh.
that that kind of gives you this sense of time and place.
Yeah.
But the part that's kind of charming about it too is like, I'm sure there was this time in this type of movies where special effects could not accomplish what real life could, right?
Mm,
And then there was that weird awkward period where they tried to make the special effects look as good, but it looked awful. And then now it's almost seamless.
mm,
But when you look at this stuff and the special and the fight scenes and stuff like that, it does have a different feel, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Than the
yeah.
the very CGI stuff that we.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
mean,
Yeah.
it's not only looks different, but it just feels different. I mean, there's never like I just personally, for me, it just brings me joy.
Hmm.
Like knowing that it makes me sad when I see Jackie Chan's, you know, twisted, bloody body being carried off.
Ugh.
But
Yeah.
when you
But he
see
did it for you.
he
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
he did
Yeah.
it to give me that joy, actually, of
Yeah.
seeing humans do this.
Yeah. We talked about that with Randall the last couple of weeks, where how, uh, you know, back then the shots were wider to focus on the fighting. Nowadays, fight scenes are all about cuts, 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 cuts. So you don't really get to see a lot. It drives me crazy in an action movie where you just see nothing but John Wick has been the first film in years that's actually shown the fights, which is great. Those John
Mm.
Wick films, but so many other films, you're just like you see like just cuts, cuts, action, fun, and it's like you don't get to see the fight, and it's so frustrating. I'm like, I want to see the fight. What's going on? I don't need these hot little action shots, these little cuts. But here you see everything. Nothing's hidden.
Mhm.
Nothing's cheated,
Uh-huh.
and it's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah. But
Love
I
it.
mean, it's incredibly difficult to pull off. I was
Oh
actually
yeah.
reading about the star of 5 Venom because he was in not him. I've been watching a lot of Hong Kong movies. So there was another big star who's still, and now I'm forgetting his name, so that's terrible. But he did a lot. He was like the really handsome matinee idol guy.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Billy
yeah,
something or
I think so. He's
no, Ted.
No, it's not Ted. No, I'll look it up after I do this. But he says how the fight choreographer sometimes would have him do 60 moves in a single take.
Yeah, not
and
surprised.
that's an awful lot. That's insane. So I mean, I think with the Jackie Chan films, he was just so incredibly gifted, and he had this team of stunt people who were so gifted. And then you get Michelle Yeoh, who's doing her own stunts. So you really have like super.
David Chang and T Lung were the.
Yeah,
I think T Lung you're talking about. Maybe
we have these, superheroes who, in real life, like you're saying, Deb, and it's just like they're like, okay, we're gonna do this scene, and let it roll, just let it roll. Like they had the confidence and the ability to pull it off. And we've talked about in the last couple of weeks also just how much Jackie Chan suffered in his early career. I mean, I mentioned this last week, but I got to interview Jackie Chan during his Rush Hour.
Amazing.
Wow.
And
on
the
a fan of.
on the phone. I've never seen any of
that.
He's not a fan of those films. He doesn't understand. He didn't like American humor. He didn't think it was funny. He didn't like how they did the choreography. It's like, yeah, he was not a fan of them.
But it did make him a big star.
But he enjoyed the money.
Yeah,
he enjoyed the money and the fame. Yeah.
But it was my interview with Jackie Chan was very funny because they set it up and he was in Hong Kong and they're like, oh, the time difference, he'll have to call you at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm a night owl. And instead it ended up a Sunday morning. I'm sure I was out the night before drinking. And 10 a.m. the phone rings as my chunky landline, and it's like, hold for Jackie Chan. And I'm like,
what?
Up, wide awake. Thank God in those days I prepared so hard. Obviously I was prepared
for
Jackie to call. And so I had
scrambling to get those notes. You're like, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. And I mean, I guess I misunderstood when they said PM. I don't know. But and then we talked, and he was great. But the was really funny was my cat woke up and was like yowling. Inky, my old cat, was yowling. And finally, Jackie Chan says, "What's wrong with your cat?"
It's so funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But he mentioned. I mean, he talked about his schooling and how hard it was. And, as I mentioned last week, he said, yeah, I had to sleep on a blanket that smelled like pee-pee. And, I mean, he's told that anecdote a lot of times, but it was nothing was luxurious at the Peking
Opera School is no joke.
Yeah. And, he had a very, he was basically sold by his parents to the school and trained and
the master, the Sifu, ended up adopting him.
But I mean, it wasn't an easy childhood for him, and it was, he talks about it a lot, and he's such a success story. I mean, to have that drive and to have, obviously Michelle Yeoh also has that drive and that ambition, and she didn't want to be pigeonholed as a beauty queen, even though she was so beautiful. And I mean, I think that's one of the things, like Deb, you were saying, like, you just couldn't wait for her to come back on screen in this movie because it's so rare to see someone who is so beautiful and doesn't care. She just doesn't.
She has so many great moves in this film, so many great, like, stunning, like, you could tell she's got a dance background as well. It's like some of those moves are incredible. Like, we get to the drug den scene, the general and all the other drug dealers trying to buy drugs, and when she just does that back flip kick with her leg to the guy's head, I'm like, chef's kiss. I'm like, oh my God, beautiful.
You just end up cheering for her, like, I want the movie just be about her.
Yeah, well, she got her. The sequel was a spin-off, was Supercop 2 starring her, so she didn't get her own film out of that, which I haven't seen in ages either.
That's natural,
and if you haven't seen Wing Chun, she's the star of that, and she's absolutely incredible. Oof. And of course, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which brought her back to mainstream. But so then we have the every I'll say every scene in Supercop is like the classic, hackneyed trope. Oh, now it's assault on the drug lord's headquarters. What can we mess up this time?
Yep.
And there's dynamite. There's there's this
rocket launchers.
There's some fighting.
Insane.
But I there's this one little tossed off scene in there that is like, they're running and he jumps through this window and she goes to jump after him and the window flap closes and she just crumples. And it's hilarious. And we shouldn't be laughing, but it's so funny.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, she's pretty good with comedy too in that for sure.
Yeah. She's no serious Sam, but
yeah.
But
she doesn't do like the facial comedy like how what he does is he does a very exaggerated facial expressions.
Yeah.
Almost like silent movie type.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And for her, she's a little more deadpan, and her comedy comes through in different ways.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting contrast, right? Because they're not trying to out-ape each other, or she just kind of keeps her personality. I mean, I find her really interesting in that she's pretty, but she's not cutesy pretty or fragile pretty.
Like May is. May would be cutesy, fragile pretty. Yes, for sure.
Not like like kill that roach for me.
Yeah. Which is what May would do. Yeah. Which is what May would do.
Well, May, she shows up in the next.
How was May going to be back in this film?
Because this is also a travelogue. We go from Wuhan.
So they leave the drugged in. They go to where are they? In
Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
They go to Malaysia. But to be fair, in either Police Story 1 or 2, because it's like, oh, it's so contrived. She showed up. May's a random tour guide in Malaysia now. But doesn't in 1 or 2 it say something like she's coming back from Malaysia and gets arrested because something Jackie forgot to give her the papers like that. So I'm like, so they kind of set it up that she'd been going back and forth to Malaysia before. So not too contrived, but still kind of contrived. But
and then we learn what the end game of all of this planning is. It's like the big boss wanted to get Panther out of jail. I guess he just wanted him around, but the big boss's wife is in jail.
Yeah.
She's the only one who knows this code, the number for the Swiss bank account. So they got to get her
millions of dollars in it. Yeah.
Released from this trial where she pleads. They're like, send her back to jail. Like she doesn't get off.
They put her. They're like, you're gonna die. We're gonna. They give her the death sentence.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're trying to get the numbers. She's like, you tell my husband to get me out of here, and I'll give him the numbers.
Yeah.
So that's why they're back in Malaysia. Yeah. So the idea is to break her out.
So this is kind of setting up the final grouping of. But then May shows up. Why is Kevin with that girl again?
Yeah.
And then that's a lot. I don't know. What did you guys think? What do you guys think of May? I was like,
I love May, but they give her the worst stuff though. It's like she's just overreacting, knee-jerk reaction. Like there's clearly an explanation why he's there. It's like, go talk to him first. Don't just like run out and this is a trope in many movies that still in TV shows they still do nowadays, where you see someone like instead of going to talk to them, you just react like, oh, something must be wrong. But then eventually, and it's some comical moments, of course, that eventually, he's able to get aside and tell her what's going on, and she plays along. But then they make her like be the one that gives it all up too.
Oh my god!
Like,
then,
come on.
So I give May. I'll cut her some slack because Kevin's a horrible boyfriend. But then she's in the elevator full of people. She turns to her friend. Yeah, my boyfriend's a cop and he's here undercover, and he says not to tell anybody. And he's trying to bring down this drug lord. Anyway, well, hey, let's go. I'll see you later. Then, like, come on, girl.
Oh, May. Poor May. I love you, Maggie.
Poor May.
I love May. I wish they would have given, obviously in this movie but I wish they would have given her a little more, like maybe she fights, maybe she can fight or like that. But
have you guys seen the Heroic Trio?
No. I'd love to. I'm going to now.
All right. Yeah, it's her, Michelle Yeoh, and Anita Mui as 3 superhero women kicking ass. You guys, all right. So Deb, you got to come back. We're gonna
unavailable. Damn it.
What is not available
on Amazon? Damn it. I wonder if it's anywhere else.
Well, we got to find Heroic Trio, and they made a sequel, The Executioners, and this will like Maggie Chung is also superhero. She's
Nice.
incredible. And she started
There's no equivalent to this, is there, in American films?
well, not unless you count Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
What's that?
I mean,
Where
where you're like, you're seeing this kind of hero.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I could think was like Christopher Guest movies where like there's this ensemble and then they just come back in different roles in all the different movies.
Yeah.
They're a really tight group of actors that just kind of get mixed and matched,
Well, Deb, you said earlier, like, all, like, oh, you can't tell them apart. I mean, that's insane. They're so distinctive. I will say I did get the two Tony Lungs mixed up. They're both young, but then one of them is this super suave, romantic lead. And then the other was this kind of intense, kind of action picture guy. So after you've seen a couple, one of their movies, it's easy to tell them apart.
Yeah, sure. There you go.
But all right, so we got to have a return. We're gonna finish up Kung Fu Month. We have a lot more to cover here in Comic Book Guide.
Sure.
But yes, we're gonna reunite for the Heroic Trio.
Kung Fu Month
because it'll redeem Maggie Chung for you. In so many ways.
I still love her though. My little May.
She's fantastic. She's a great. I mean, she went on to a fantastic career and win awards, and she became a very respected dramatic actor. I mean,
yeah. So she gets. So of course, one of the bad guys is on the elevator and hears this, kidnaps her. Tables turn on Jackie and Michelle, so they force him like, hey, we got your girlfriend. If you don't help us, she's dead. So this sets up this whole jailbreak or prison break type thing. She's in a like police van. The wife is getting transported. And then it just goes nuts.
It just goes nuts. And Quentin Tarantino said that these were the best, this is the best action scenes ever put on film. I mean, he said that a while ago. I mean, I don't think
he said it several. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't surpass it. I mean, the stunts and action scenes in these police story movies are unsurpassed. Nothing better has ever been done. I mean, they're just, I don't know how you could do them any better.
Because no producer would put their neck on the line.
No.
For the chance.
Well, no Hollywood producer.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the human toll. But so then we have Jackie hanging off the helicopter, the classic. Seen that, except it's really him hanging off the helicopter.
Michelle Yeoh hanging from a van.
Hanging from a van.
Really her hanging from a van. It's like,
and she's just, man, she's just so intense because she's on top of the van and she's just like pulling the gun and like, she never wavers. She never falters. It's just, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, America has so many problems with strong women in films. And like, there's never a nod, there's never a wink. You never question her, right? She never has to prove herself that, oh yeah, she's a girl, but she's tough. It's just for the minute you meet her, she's tough.
Even recently in Star Trek Discovery, I've only just now started watching it. I'm on near the end of season 1, and there's a great fight scene she's in. I'm just like, I wonder if people remembered what a good fighter she was and was like, oh shit, because she's so good. Obviously, like even now, in her, she's obviously a little older, than she's here, and she's just incredible. This small little Star Trek fight, she has. I'm like, oh my god,
That's right.
So
she's in the new Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, she's had many fits starts in her career. And just to finish up with Supercop though, so then a train enters the equation, and like I say to Jimmy, any movie with a train is always good. It's always good. And a fight on top of the train, but plus a crashed helicopter.
And Michelle Yeoh on a motorcycle. Did that stunt and jumped the bike onto the train.
Onto a moving train.
Do that stunt several times.
Yeah.
And probably got injured a few times doing it. She really did that stunt. It's like
incredible. And I mean, she does this stunt. She did not know how to ride a motorcycle prior to this movie. Apparently her and the director, Stanley Tong, also didn't know. He's like, okay, we'll go take lessons. And he's like, you jump. No, this is fun. But, he wanted to show that he was sympathetic to how hard it was to jump a motorcycle onto a moving train. So, yeah, she just does it. I mean, Quentin Tarantino referenced the stunt in Kill Bill, where at the end, she says, Beatrice says to Bill, like, I love you. I would have jumped a motorcycle onto a train.
Mhm. Yep.
And I mean, it's just incredible. It's just
Amazing.
like just I can't believe how awesome Michelle Yeoh is.
Yeah, and these fights, of course, which I love about these films also, a lot of these kung fu films we've talked about, is they just sort of end. They're like,
Mhm.
well, we caught the bad guy. We don't need really any denouement or any sort of like epilogue. The movie's over.
Yep.
We came what we came to do. So why do we need to talk about it?
Mission accomplished.
Which I'm guess is like, oh, fair enough. All right. So it does kind of just sort of end with a little cutaway shot of them on the train with the recaptured wife. It's like, okay, I guess that's it. It's so great. I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
Supercop is the same way. It sort of just ends. You're like, oh, I guess we're done. It's like really funny,
Wow.
but it's also it works. It works for that type too.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. And as far as Michelle Yeoh goes, so she had this 90s kung fu martial arts.
Mhm.
She was in the Bond movie. She was a Bond
Oh
girl.
yeah,
And
Mm.
as Mayday, and
Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah.
Tomorrow Never Dies, and she's phenomenal, and then they have like this one scene in there where her fight choreographer comes in and choreographs it so you could see how the Hong Kong movie's made. And I mean, I have a big soft spot for Pierce Brosnan, and I'll just get that out of the
Oh,
way. So
he's great.
yeah,
I love Pierce.
yeah,
He's awesome.
okay.
Absolutely.
And she's really good in
Yeah.
Tomorrow Never Dies, but still, it's a Bond movie. Women are treated a little differently there, but she's one of my
But
favorite
he
Bond.
made a comment about like how impressed he was with her, something like that.
Oh,
And I remember
really?
reading something how he was like, she was incredible. Like she was, yeah, he was very impressed by her. And like probably hadn't had any leading lady
But
like that before.
But that also just shows, how trendy it was at this
Hmm.
point in time.
Yeah, that
That
was '97.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
was
one of those.
97. That was the year that Hong Kong went
Mhm.
back to China, and I was like, yeah, what are we gonna do? We're gonna do a Hong Kong story. It's very much of the moment at that time. Anyway, she was then in Crouching Tiger, Hidden
Yeah, 3 years
Dragon.
later, 2000,
Three
Crouching Tiger
years
was
later,
phenomenal,
which is
phenomenal.
a beloved classic of and she's so good at acting with Chow Yun Fat. Now it was supposed to be Jet Li, and he was going to fight too, but he couldn't do it for whatever reason. So they
Hmm.
got a great actor. They got Chow
Yeah,
Yun Fat, and he's incredible in
yeah,
it.
I
And
love that film.
I mean, again, I just think she's the greatest.
She's amazing.
She's just what can't she do? And and then she
Look how
didn't
great
do
she
any
was in Crazy Rich Asians. I mean,
yeah,
just
and
to
then
play
she didn't
this.
do anything in America, really. She kind of became this cult figure to people like me who worship her, and people in the know. And then, thank God, they figured out that she gets that second wind where you're old enough to be a legend.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was also in. Remember, she had the bit part in Guardians of the Galaxy too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because
and then in
I remember seeing her in Crazy Rich Asians as the mom,
Oh yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah.
with
She's
that
incredible in
as
that.
the
Yeah,
silly mom, and that's not
I
an
love
easy
that film.
thing to pull off, right? Because
No.
it's the same thing, right? She's strong, she's
Hmm.
she seems like she's the bad guy, but really you kind
Hmm.
of get these nuances. Like, no, she's not really necessarily the bad guy. She just kind of has certain goals or interests in mind, and this is how she sees
Yeah,
them. So it's kind of
yeah.
like
We did.
that's not easy to pull off, right? Because you could do a very one-dimensional female villain type thing.
Hmm.
And
Right.
what
Yeah,
comes across
she's
that is just
incredible.
like like with the mahjong scene where they're like scoring off with each other.
Yes.
mm,
I love
It's
that. I've seen
kind
that
of
film like
intense.
10 times. My favorites. I love it. I love it. Yeah, she did Memoirs of a Geisha, of course, early
Mhm.
2000s, which was, I mean, God, she's just an incredible actress and like
yeah,
an
and she
Asian
was also
fighter.
in Last Christmas.
Yeah,
Right?
which we both discovered. Yeah, it's a sort of a new little fun Christmas film I like, and she's great in
Yeah.
that too. Yeah,
Yeah. I yeah.
she's
So
great.
she's luckily she's kind of gotten her footing as
So she's gonna be in the Avatar films,
yes, that's
Oh,
right. Yeah.
shortly.
So she's
She's
totally
fine.
amazing. She's fine. And
She's gonna be in Shang-Chi, the
and
movie
she
Shang-Chi.
right, she's in Shang-Chi. So and she also married another rich French
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah.
Lives in
did
a
she
beautiful
really?
Swiss. Yeah, she's got it all figured out, man.
There's another movie that stars I love Karen Gillan coming up that she's in, and it's about badass female assassins, I think, called Gunpowder Milkshake. It's coming up.
Mm.
So it's her and I think Karen Gillan's like to the lead, but it's like Michelle Yeoh, Lena Headey, Angela Bassett, Carla Gugino,
Angela
who's in it.
Bassett,
Oh.
I would say, is like
Yeah.
the American equivalent of Michelle Yeoh, kind of this
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
What
kind of this
yeah.
That makes sense.
badass
Yeah, for sure.
evilness.
Yeah, and she's had such a great long career, and always comes back strong.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
it's hard. It's really hard for actresses, especially well, we don't really have action actresses here in America. Cynthia Rothrock was like the one that people talked about a lot. Obviously, we've developed more with Charlize Theron is incredible. And Sigourney Weaver, but
some they try to make you think is like we were talking about how like they try to make it think people like Scarlett Johansson is a good action hero. Maybe not. Maybe not so much.
Yeah, that doesn't fly with me somehow.
Not so much. She's not as trained. It goes back to those cuts and takes where it's not like you don't see the full fight really thing. It's like I like Scarlett Johansson a lot as an actress, but as an
she's great,
action one, I'm like I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's why Charlize Theron really has taken on the mantle of. I mean, she's been in so well. She's in Old Guard. She was in, of course, Mad Max: Fury Road, another masterpiece.
Which she was.
And what?
Takes a lot of stuff on. Like she takes on those real Oscar bait movies where she doesn't wear makeup and she looks like hell.
Yeah. I mean, not a huge star, but Mila Jovovich has done a lot of action stuff.
She's that's right. That's right.
Yeah. For sure.
But so it's not, like there's like Charlize Theron, it kind of like does this whole gamut, right? Kind of like how, I don't know, who else does like maybe Keanu Reeves does a gamut of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, it's hard. There's not that many. I mean, I might have said like Johnny Depp, but he's not really an action star.
I mean, but he's had. I mean, unfortunately, his real life, but like he's had a great gamut of like a smart career where he could have been the pretty leading man, but he decided to take a different role. Instead of playing the leading man, he would play these leading man character roles in a sense. So I thought that was a very smart move in his career, but it's like, and
of course, out of this Hong Kong generation, Jackie Chan did cross over to America, which he deserved 100%. I mean, like not recognized.
There was a Saturday morning TV show with him, right?
Yeah, they had a cartoon. Yeah, exactly.
That's right. That's right. And we were saying last night. Now, a lot of Chinese actors have a lot of controversy about where they stand on independence, and Jackie Chan has not stood up for Hong Kong independence, but.
Yeah, and that's a little sad, but I get the dilemma he's in.
It is tough because that happened with when Mulan came out live action, where the lead had some controversial comments about she had made about the whole situation as well. So it's like, I get when you're a public figure like that. I mean, I still think you should, if you've got weight, like he's got weight, he could say something. Like I can understand her; she's sort of a star in China, but not yet worldwide. Mulan sort of made her worldwide. So I could kind of see maybe her not retracting comics, but it's like still don't agree with it. But him, he's got some pull. He could say what he wants, and it would be nice to see him, stick up for.
But at the same time, like we haven't seen Jack Ma, who's like one of the richest guys in China since October. So if even Jack Ma is it?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more that we don't know about going on.
I mean, that would be like as if Donald Trump had disappeared Jack Dorsey, literally. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean.
I just looked up Jack Ma. Jack Ma reappears, but what does the market see?
Where?
First public appearance a day ago. First public appearance in months.
It was really funny when he waved yesterday too, right? Like he waved. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. It's a bad joke. Yeah. I mean, I understand too why it's very, very problematic for people to speak out either way. So, but he's Jackie Chan.
What's going on with Jackie Chan's career now? Does he have any movies?
Oh yeah, he's making movies all the time. He's graduated to the Mr. Miyagi role.
Oh, is that
right?
Because I mean, you can if you watch enough Jackie Chan movies, you can see the toll that it's taken on his body. And I mean, he's obviously incredibly physical and amazing. Through Rush Hour films and so on, but I mean, there's no way you can't have as many broken bones and injuries as he has, and it doesn't take a toll, That's just how it is.
Because I would have thought he would be like, like the older football players who kind of had real problems. Like, or even like Muhammad Ali had problems towards the end because of all the damage that his body took.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, we don't know of that. So I'll just say that. I mean, he still appears and, still filmmaking. So,
He's got a few things in pre and post production, a few things in. Oh, what? There's a rumored Rush Hour 4. Really? Okay, it's just rumored.
Yeah, well, you got to get Chris Tucker out of retirement.
Well, he came back recently too. Chris Tucker did.
Did he?
Yeah, he did something recently. I can't remember what it was.
But he's elusive.
Yeah.
Chris Tucker is very, very elusive. So,
is that right?
Oh yeah, he after the he just doesn't do anything but Rush Hour movies and a couple of other things. Yeah, he went to Africa for a long time and just he does not have any interest in being a big movie star who makes lots of movies. He's I mean, more power to him.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, so much fun.
As long as they don't bring it back with Jaden Smith or something.
Oh.
Sorry, no.
You never know. No, yeah. There's Jackie sort of started doing more acting role stuff, like where he wasn't really doing physical fights in a lot of films, and sort of let the younger, people do sort of the other stuff. But yeah, which is nice to see. It's kind of he took on some dramatic roles, so
that makes sense, right? Because I mean, my image of him is the same as I see him in this movie, and I know this movie is decades old.
Yeah, there's a little mileage on him. Not like Michelle Yeoh. She uses a sheet mask every day. I was reading about her skin regime, so
my criticism about Asian, how everyone talks like black don't crack and like the Asian aging.
Asian don't raisin, yeah.
I think it's like true. You can coast on that for a while, but when you turn 60, you look 60.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always joke, because I'm half Filipino. It's like they always say, in Asians they look young forever, then when they hit that age they turn old automatically, overnight. You're like, oh, well, I was youthful yesterday and now I'm suddenly an old, crumpled up little apple,
when I went to Italy and I saw all these handsome men and these beautiful women, and then it was either that or they were old. And I thought, is this when you don't see baby pigeons in New York? That's in between stage.
Right.
I never see baby. What? Holy cow! Incredible. Alrighty.
Well, there we go.
Incredible film series for sure.
Yeah, and if you want to see action, just go check them out. Police Story 1 on Police Story 1 is on HBO Max, and Supercop's on Amazon right now. And as Netflix has an incredible lineup of martial arts films, as we keep saying, so enough to keep. Oh, you know what the movie I watched was The Flying Guillotine.
Oh, Flying Guillotine! I love those films. Flying Guillotines are the best. About? Oh, it's literally in the title. There, it's like this helmet thing attached to a chain where they throw it, it lands on your head and rips your head off. It pulls off. Classic. I loved. That was one of those Saturday morning cartoons. That was one of the ones I thought about covering next, but I decided to do Bruce Lee instead.
I know. Well,
there's two of them. Yeah.
Well, I happened to watch it. Okay, and the guy who's the star is Quan Tai Chen. Okay, so he was a beloved leading man for years anyway. So he's the guy who said, oh, they made anybody. He studied wushu. It's a really interesting career. He's still around. He still does movies. And but he was the guy who was like, yeah, 60 moves in one take. No. I mean, yes, I got to do it.
God.
But yeah, we're having such a great time revisiting these. Deb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting
me. Speaking of real quick, speaking of one takes, did you see there's a film coming out? I think it's a Japanese film where it's a 77-minute one take action thing. And it looks like it's one guy versus 400 people. I posted about it recently. It looks incredible. I can't remember the name, but it looks incredible. It's supposed to be all one. I'm like, holy cow. But I'm definitely looking forward to that one for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
lots of things to watch. So anyway, well, until next time when we'll be doing Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon, and don't forget to subscribe and also hit notifications so we make sure you know when we're coming back. Anyway, until next time, I'm Heidi MacDonald of The Beat, comicsbeat.com. You can find me on all social media at COMIXACE.
Jimmy Aquino with Comic News Insider. You can go to comicnewsinsider.com and all your places you download a podcast. You can find me online, mostly Twitter and Instagram at Jimmy Aquino. That's at JIMMYAQUINO.
And I'm Deb Aoki. You can find me on Twitter at Deb Aoki, DEBAOKI. And we're coming up with a new podcast called Manga Splaining with Chris Butcher, David Brothers, and
amazing.
So that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So look forward to it.
Oh, I can't wait.
Wow.
Oh,
Manga
awesome.
splaining. Man,
Yeah.
we will be listening in on that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, thank you for joining us, and hang in there and stay safe.
I hate you, Kevin Chan.